Actually, I've moved a lot of the stuff outside because it's sunny. It's amazingly sunny in California, finally, which is good for my plants, and always good. Want to talk about housing today. I always get questions about housing. It's usually people's largest investment. That's the problem. They think of it as an investment. Housing prices do not stay up in economic collapses, especially banking collapses. If you cannot borrow money, you cannot buy a house. That's just a fact of reality. Unless you have the cash to put all down and ready to go, housing prices will drop to the floor if the banks cannot lend or will not lend. And with this transition, that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be another banking freeze up just like in 2008. Had the banks not been bailed out, your house would have dropped 90 to 95% value. It's a fact because nobody has the money to buy a house. The way houses are bought is through bank credit or rolling over the equity value of your current house. A lot of people will upgrade their houses, and all of a sudden, because everybody's either getting free money from the bank or rolling over the equity in their house into another house, it keeps upward pressure on the supply-demand factor. When the banks go down, housing prices go down almost to nothing, because if you can't borrow, you can't buy a house. You can't buy a house. No, everybody and their mother is trying to get out, panicking, especially if they're not going to bail out the banks this time, which I don't think they will. So there's an article on Zero Hedge called Housing Bubble Pathologies Start to Bite, Yet Another Sign the Cycle Has Peaked. This came from John Rubino. The early stages of the housing bubble are fun for pretty much everyone. Homeowners see their equity start to rise and feel smart for having bought. Home seekers have to pay up, but not too much, and fully expect their new home to keep appreciating. People with modest incomes feel a bit of a pinch, but can still afford to stick around. But later on, the bad starts to outweigh the good. Existing homeowners still enjoy the ride, but would-be buyers find themselves priced out of their top-choice neighborhoods, and residents who aren't tech millionaires find that they can no longer afford to live where they work. Consider a plight of the teacher or cop pretty much everywhere in California these days, and he goes into a story about a teacher. He can't even afford to live in the place he's teaching. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And then he goes on and says, when housing costs reach a point, there's no real fix. Reach this high point, there's no real fix. Raise taxes to increase teacher pay, and there's political trouble. Cut back on other services, and quality of life declines. Streamline the schools and educational outcomes, and teacher morale plummets. There's a limit, in other words, to the ascent of home prices beyond which the system starts to break down. And when people who make a town run smoothly, teachers, firefighters, cops, sanitation workers, can no longer afford to live there, that town clearly crosses that line. Based on the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which is now back at its 2007 housing bubble peak, there are a lot more, Davis, California, that's where they had talked about, out there with the pathologies that implies, and let me show you the graph. And here we are, the Case-Shiller 20 City Composite Price Index. This right here, 2007, this is where we are now. We are right back at bubble mania, right back at that point where a crash is imminent. But here's the other thing. In 2008, at least we had decent interest rates up there at 7%. So when the crash happened, the Fed could panic, drop the interest rates to almost to nothing, and you can reinflate the housing bubble. Well, now interest rates are already at nothing. There's nowhere to go down farther. So the next bubble pop of the housing market, you're going to see exactly same thing happened in 2008. But this time it's going to be different because the banks are not going to be bailed out. That's a guarantee. There's no sentiment out there for another bailout of banks. And the fact that JP Morgan just announced problems in the second quarter, Deutsche Bank is going to be downgraded at any moment. The largest derivative holder in the world will be downgraded. I don't see any hope at all for housing prices getting past this next hiccup. They can't reinflate the economy. Interest rates are already too low. Can they go to negative? Yeah, but does that really help? Does that really help in the future? Housing prices are going to drop and people freak out. Absolutely. So the article goes on to say a housing bubble, of course, is just a symptom of a bigger problem. Easy money distorts the workings of a market economy by causing the prices of many assets to soar above all reason, enriching the owners and impoverishing the users. Typically, when housing reaches this point, so have stocks and other financial assets. CEO salaries, corporate concentration, political corruption, and a long list of other evils that feed on low interest rates and lax lending standards. The confluence of resulting problems then brings the cycle to a noisy end. Poof, it all disappears. So, my take on housing is it should not be seen as an investment today. I get everybody needs a place to live, and those who look at their house as a home and the payments they can afford even through a crisis, that's the way you need to look at it. If you look at it as an investment, good luck. If the banks stop lending, your house is going to drop 95% of its value, which I think we're approaching. I think it's clear that Deutsche Bank goes down. Pretty much everybody goes down. I heard an interview today on Bloomberg. They were talking to a European banker, and they asked, Deutsche Bank, the largest lender in Europe, is having problems. Can they survive, and what happens if they don't survive? And basically the other banker said, well, the government of Germany will never allow a crash of Deutsche Bank because it would destroy the whole economic system. Exactly. Absolutely. Why would they allow them even to get in trouble? Because they want the system to be destroyed. That's what we're getting to. So yes, I am watching for the downgrade of Deutsche Bank. Nothing will happen right away. It'll take a couple weeks. And then all of a sudden you'll start hearing about derivative problems. And just like in 2008, those derivative problems are contagious. And then J.P. Morgan, the largest derivative hold, actually they're second largest now in the U.S. The other criminal bank, Citibank, is the largest derivative holding bank in the U.S. They're going to start having problems. And these derivatives spiral out of control very quickly. So I would expect when the downgrade comes, if it comes, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but if you hear about Deutsche Bank being downgraded in the next couple of weeks, that's a gigantic deal. It triggers derivatives that within probably a month or so we'll start hearing about, oh my God, somebody's defaulted on a derivative promise. And then another person has defaulted on a derivative promise. And then you start to see the stock market go south, and you start to see everything start to shake and shimmy just like in 2008. Then we'll hit September to October timeframe, and they'll have to go to Congress, U.S. Congress, and say we need another bailout. Oh, by the way, it's $20 trillion we need this time, not $700 billion. And Congress will say no, it ain't gonna happen. Especially, not with Trump on Trump's watch. The Democrats won't vote for it, and the Republicans won't vote for it because they're not allowed to vote for banker bailouts. So yes, we are on the brink of another 2008. Except this time, I really believe there won't be a bailout. And with no bailout, it means chaos hits and your house price drops 75, 85, 90%. Almost instantly, because the Federal Reserve can't do anything with interest rates. It's already at zero, and the banks aren't lending. The banks stop lending because they can't. They need to preserve their Tier 1 capital. And it gets uglier and uglier. And that's kind of where we are, and what will happen? I think a lot of people who are preserving their wealth right now in gold and silver and cryptos will do very well and be buying up assets on the cheap. If the banks aren't lending, if you're a crypto holder, you're loving it, because those are assets. Those are real assets. Those aren't debt to anybody. Same with gold and silver. If you hold it in your own possession, if you don't, you got third-party issues. So, will the exchanges stay intact if the banks go down? No. All exchanges, even the crypto exchanges, completely rely on the banking system staying intact. When and why will this happen? It's going to start this summer. It will probably go on for years, truthfully. And I don't see I see little bailouts here and there, not the gargantuan bailout. Will Deutsche Bank be bailed out? Yes, but what will that do? Then Greece will be going to the EU and say, we need a bailout. And Italy will say, we need a bailout. And Spain will say, we need a bailout. And the bailouts will come. And austerity already didn't work once. It's not going to work again. The people will revolt against that. They're already revolting against that in Italy. So things are absolutely out of control, and I think it will be shown in the housing prices come probably starting the end of the year. We're going to see some big drops, and then into 2019, 2020. If you believe Martin Armstrong, really smart guy, he says the bottom of the housing market is 2034, I think, 2035, in that time frame. So yes, it has a long way to go. And then what happens then? Who knows? Who knows? But you think about the 2030s. Oh my God, that's so far off. That's like the future. No, it's not that far off. It's what 15 years. It's 2033 is what 15 years away. That's 15 years. That's nothing. I remember what I was doing 15 years ago. Do you guys? In 2003, 2004, I remember. So I guess when you get older, the future doesn't seem so far away anymore. Anyway, yes, you should definitely be in the cryptos. You should definitely keep your cryptos offline. The next wave of people coming in will be a really big monster wave. So I don't know how it's all going to shake out and go down. I know there's a lot of undervalued cryptos right now, just like there were when I was buying Bitcoin at $200. I knew it was coming. I knew the next wave was coming. I just didn't know when, but I knew that I would kick myself if I didn't load up and just sit back and wait. And that we're in the same type of spot. Although I think this summer we're going to see the breakdown of the old system and the rebirth really, of the crypto mania. And some really good things are happening in the cryptos. I've been dwelling on some bad things just because I want to protect the cryptos. And you should. You fight the fights that are worth fighting. And sometimes great technology might not be great for other reasons. And I'm going to fight those fights. It's what I do. Anyway, this is Bix Weir, roadtoroot.com. Hope you guys have a good day. Talk to you later.